Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We are trying to understand the third limb of Ashtanga Yoga, asana. And therein we were trying to understand the process of yogasanas as a part of education. And we were coming to Jnana Yoga Kriya, which is one of the Ashtadasha Mahakriyas. There are 18 Mahakriyas of asanas, and the 12th is Jnana Yoga Kriya. Yogasana, Prakriya, that is process, and the Jnana Yoga philosophy, Jnana Yoga culture, Jnana Yoga foundation are very much integrated in yogasanic process. So that highlight or signature condition of Jnana Yoga is about the concept of pronoun I. And the Jnana Yoga tells us much about the pronoun I, with which we all have messed up in the dynamics of worldly life. So Jnana Yoga tells us about who am I and what is all this. And we will otherwise never experience in our intellectual process. We will never come to believe. We will never really clearly understand or have some conviction that we are birthless and deathless. Because the materiality which is exercising a lot of gravity on us, the mundanity which is exercising a lot of gravity on us, it will never give us slightest clue to the reality that we are timeless, we are birthless, we are deathless, because it makes us practically believe in the fact that we have a birth at a point in time and we have a death in point in time, and we have limited existence in this world. But Jnana Yoga investigates into the very nature of Atman, and we have considered this while considering the self principle earlier in the sutras. Whenever we try to delineate on drashta, delineate on Purushatattvam, we did go for that, and we did realize that metaphysically we are birthless, deathless, conditionless, stateless, ageless, genderless, and formless, etc., etc. So the Bhagavad Gita in the second chapter, which was oft quoted, one can look into that. The second chapter describes the Atma. So we have considered this often while dealing with drashta, the seer, the self. Achintyo ayam, avikaro ayam, etc., etc. is described in metaphysics, and Bhagavad Gita tells us about it. So this is how we essentially are. So that is our metaphysical Swaroopam, Atita Bhautika Swaroopam. where we do not have delimitations, which are caste, class, creed, race, genetic background, genealogical background, age, gender, condition, situation, the birth, the death, and various conditions that we come across in life, from extremely delightful to extremely sorrowful, and then debilitated conditions, strong conditions, weak conditions, etc. These are all of the body, or these are all of the embodiment and not of the embodied. So how is this pronoun I? This Aham is Anadi, beginningless, Ananta, endless. It is without Jat, Pati, Adi, upadhis. We are transcendent principle than our empirical I. Our empirical I, temporal I, has all the delimitations which are often quoted, like class, caste, creed, gender, status, age, ethnicity, genetic background, genealogical background, etc., etc. Then it has no age, it has no gender. We have no age, we have no gender. The core principle, the pronoun I, essentially is a transcendent principle metaphysically. And we become limited in our temporal empirical gravity. And that idea, that notion is really alien to yoga, alien to even yogasana. And therefore, yogasana should take us into a zone whereby we are free from worldly delimitations, mundane delimitations. And the culture of any yogic practice, the Aham in Yogavastha, even our Yogavastha, which is the twilight condition, not one of the four conditions of or four states of consciousness described by modern science, such as awakeful state, dreamy state, dormant state, and transcendent state. Jagrata-avastha, swapna-avastha, sushupti-avastha, turiya-avastha. Now, we not being yogis, we cannot be in turiya-avastha. We will be in one of the three, but the marvel of yoga, the magic of yoga, even asanas, is that we enter a twilight zone in asanas. So, that pronoun I, which in rudimentary condition might be doing asanas, and in profound conditions might be getting asanas, taking asanas, or asanas happening on that entity, that entity is unique, transcending all delimitations, transcending worldly gravities. So the Aham should be Atmaswaroopa, Amaryada, Atita, Atita Bhautika, and that is conducive to yoga. Therefore, one must be quite drenched and soaked in the Jnana Yoga's definition of Aham, the Jnana Yoga's definition of pronoun I, which is not the definition with which we are familiar in our empirical condition, temporal condition, and worldly condition. As a minimum requirement, at least there must be a subjective entity with in a witnessivity. Sakshibhava. And this is ideal and this is proper in rendering yogasana or any aspect, practical aspect, yogasana, pranayam, kriya, mudra, etc., etc. That is yoga abhimata. Abhimata to yoga. So, therefore, there is that Jnana Yoga Kriya. If I am doing an asana or I am in asana or asana is happening on me, that me is free from delimitations which we come across in a wakeful state of consciousness. That we have a caste, class, creed, race, gender, family, genetic, genealogical background, age, gender, condition, state, etc., etc. So in Yogasana, one should be transcending all these conditions. And that is the Jnana Yoga Kriya of asana. So one can understand the importance of Jnana Yoga Kriya. So that is the 12th of the 18 Mahakriyas. I have briefly mentioned it and described it today because we have considered the Drashta Swaroopam, often metaphysical status of the I, which is not a pronoun I but is just a being. So I will not further delineate on it. Now we embark upon the 13th of the 18 Mahakriyas, that is Prana Kriya. We had considered the Shwasa Kriya on earlier occasion. One of the Ashtadasha Mahakriyas was Shwasa Kriya. Quite fundamental. Sharir Kriya, Manas Kriya, Vachik Kriya, Aindriya Kriya, Shwasa Kriya. So these were quite fundamental Kriyas of the, or Kriyas coming in the earlier phase of Ashtadasha. Kriyas coming in 18 Mahakriyas, these were something which came right at the beginning, we considered it. Now today, we are now thinking of Prana Kriya, which is different than Shwasa Kriya. We have understood that in asana in particular and all aspects of yoga in general, yamas and niyamas and pranayama and pratyahara, we know the lead role of the breath and breathing. The lead role of the breathing system, and I am not referring to respiratory system but breathing system, a holistic system, entire embodiment is part of breathing system, which is not the case of respiratory system. So we had considered this aspect while we were dealing with Shwasa Kriya. So it takes a lead position, it has a lead role. The breathing in all aspects of yoga, practical aspects of yoga, have a centric place. So breathing becomes very centric to even ahimsa vrata, satya vrata, asteya vrata, all the yamas, all the niyamas, and also is the case of asana. And for higher aspects of yogasanas, because yogasanas have to ultimately be proceeding towards ananta samapatti, because that becomes a causal factor of asana, not effectual factor. Ananta samapatti, or that absorption, is a component of asana and not an effect of asana. It's a component of asana. Effect of asana is Dvandva Adabhighata condition, and Ananta Samapatti is a component of asana. So it comes in causal body of asanas, very component in assembly of asanas. And for that purpose, Prana Kriya is so important. Of course, we will be going in much more details about Prana Kriya later when we are taking pranayam in Ashtanga Yoga. Why? What is done as yoga is not Shwasayam but Pranayam. Why not Shwasayam but Pranayam? So the Prana Kriya is so important. It works on esoteric aspects. It works on infrastructure of body and mind. Our breathing doesn't work for infrastructure of body and mind. It works for suprastructure of body and mind. Respiratory system works for suprastructure, for its health and wellness, etc., or its efficiency, etc. But Prana Kriya will work on infrastructure of body matters and mind matters, which are perhaps nominal, not phenomenal. So all the kriyas exalt with Prana Kriya. Even all the earlier kriyas that we so far considered, 12 kriyas were considered. With Prana Kriya, their grade is definitely exceptional and exclusive, figuratively, and inclusive, literally. So they become genuine kriyas. Even right from Arambhana Kriya, if it is done with Prana Kriya, because the breath is centric force, can you identify any of the kriya so far can be done without breathing? Without breathing, nothing can be done. Without breathing, we don't even live. So breathing is so centric. Now you can understand, identify the breathing in every kriya that was so far considered, and you will understand its very centric place. So when that breathing is done with Prana Kriya, it is enormously upgraded. It becomes enormously nuclear kind of energy with which we will be constituting all the kriyas so far considered. So the Prana Kriya, of course, will be explained later in pranayam, but let me not create an iron curtain for you to understand Prana Kriya. Prana Kriya means using Swara, Varna, Vyanjana in our breathing process. So Akara, Adi, Kshahakaranta are the letters, literal letters of primordial language, and using those sound forms is called Prana Kriya. It becomes Prana Kriya the moment we are using Swaravarna Vyanjanas or Nama or words. When we start using words which are the kind of sonic channel to our breathing, then it becomes Prana Kriya, and there are some 335 odd single lettered sound forms starting from A to Kshaha. Anyway, we will not go into the concept of Prana now. We will keep it reserved for the pranayam, which is the next of the Ashtanga Yoga, and we will consider it then. But just very, very, very briefly, I am saying that the breath with Madhyama Vani, silent speech, using sound forms becomes Prana Kriya. Although it is breathing, it becomes Prana Kriya in breathing. And that is so important in esoteric aspects of yoga. Because that is fundamental for higher kriyas such as Panchatattva kriyas, Shatchakra kriyas, Tattva kriyas, etc. And that's why the Prana Kriya in asanas is very, very centric. And it comes in all the kriyas. All the Ashtadasha Mahakriyas are based on Prana Kriya. So that is brief mention about the Prana Kriya. The 14th Kriya is Laya Kriya. Laya means absorption, literally. In asanas, we are supposed to proceed for laya. That can be called as chitta laya, mano laya. Because all asanas are dhyana asanas. There must be that meditative component in asanas, the dhyana component in asanas, and dhyana entails laya. There can be no dhyana without laya. So the chitta vritti, nirodha itself is of the nature of laya. You cannot imagine chitta vritti nirodha without laya. So that is how the laya aspect is so important. And in asanas, we must be going for laya, absorbed condition of the psychological mind, to deep mineral mind, or precisely chitta. Chitta laya is so important, with Patanjali himself explicitly mentions by Ananta Samapatti in asanas. So the laya needs a support and locus. Where will the mind or chitta get absorbed? It needs a support and locus. So that locus must be identified, and the mind should be immersed into that locus for laya to happen. So the Laya Kriya is so important. And without Laya Kriya, you will not be getting essential asana. That you did a perfect asana, but your mind was not at all absorbed, then it won't be yogasana at all. The yogasana must take you into the zone of absorption of the mind stuff. That's called chitta laya. Without that, there is no yogasana at all. So that is the Laya Kriya is 14th. In every asana we have to see how will our mind get absorbed within the embodiment, immersed within the embodiment, in the locus of the embodiment. One of the loci, such as the heart, such as the spine, such as the brain. The mind must dissolve, like salt dissolves in water, the mind should dissolve, and that is called Laya. That is the Laya Kriya aspect. And this gives important kind of direction for our asanas. Are we heading for a chitta laya, without which there is no chitta vritti nirodha of whatever magnitude? And that's why Laya Kriya is so important. That is the 14th Kriya. The 15th Kriya is Dhyana Kriya. Since yoga asana has to be meditative position, there must be meditativity component in it. There must be absorption in it. There must be dhyana. So, just as we saw the tripartite constitution during Jnana Kriya and Karma Kriya, the doer, doing, done, the triad, and we understood their interplays, their interactions, their dynamics. In case of Jnana Kriya, the knower, knowing, known, there also has to be the triad of dhyana, which is called dhyata, dhyana, dhyeya. So this is a very important triad which often gets mentioned in the Chaitik dimension of yoga, particularly the dhyana. Dhyana is not just meditation. If you are going to render dhyana as meditation, then there is meditator, there is meditating, and there is meditated upon. So that is called dhyata, dhyana, dhyeya. So we have to understand whether this any kind of dhyana is happening. If the dhyana is happening, then there is dhyata, the subjective entity behind it. Then there is dhyeya, there is objective entity where the absorption takes place, meditation takes place, meditativity happens. So there is a meditativity, meditation, meditator, or meditator, meditation, meditated upon. So this triad must be identified and they must interplay, interact for dhyana to bloom and blossom. Then only you will significantly trace yoga in yogasanas, not until then. So that is the Dhyana Kriya. Because Patanjali has definitely expressly mentioned about avasthaa, samapatti in asanas. And we have considered samapatti in the first chapter. Grahitru grahana grahya samapatti was considered in the samadhi part itself. So Patanjali also says Ananta Samapatti Bhyam for asanas, that there must be Ananta Samapatti component in asanas, not an effect of asanas, but component in asanas. And therefore the Samapatti has come in there, comes there, must come there, and that is only by Dhyana Kriya. So that's how Dhyana Kriya is so important in higher aspects of yogasanas, advanced aspect of yogasanas. So that is the 15th Kriya. The 16th Kriya is called Tattva Kriya. Tattva Kriya, the Tattvas are 5. Prithvi, Ap, Tej, Vayu, Akash. These are infra matters of body and mind, psychological mind. So the psychological mind is also Panchabhautika and the body is also Panchabhautika. So our psychosomatic aspects of our embodiment are constituted by 5 elements, or called Panchatattvas, or also referred to as Panchama Bhutas. So it is therefore imperative that in asanas you carry out this Panchatattva Kriya, something which is culturing, processing Prithvi Tattva, then Ap Tattva, then Tej Tattva, then Vayu Tattva and Akasha Tattva. So there are bija mantras to all these 5 elements for Prithvi, Ap, Tej, Vayu, Akasha, respectively Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, Ham. And then there is exhalative breath and inhalative breath and retentive breath which comes in our breathing process. And with the bija mantras of tattvas used, it works on infrastructural aspects of our embodiment. They start working on the source of our embodiment. And the tattva kriya is done by exhalative breath, inhalative breath, retentive breath. Over and above, if you recall the yoga kriya considered earlier, Kapalbhati kriya, Uddiyana kriya and Agnisar kriya. These are the kitchen consciousness is the consciousness kitchen or kitchen of consciousness is constituted, and the kitchen processes of the consciousness are handled by exhalative breath, inhalative breath, inner outer retentive breath and Uddiyana kriya, Kapalbhati kriya, Agnisar kriya. So in yoga kriya that we considered earlier, we did touch upon these kriyas, Kapalbhati, Uddiyana and Agnisar. So tattva kriyas are by those. And their bija mantras are lam, vam, ram, yam, hum. So in all asanas we must specifically address the 5 elements. That's the esoteric aspect of asanas. You just can't do a posture and perfect a posture. You will have to attend to lam, prithvi, vam, up, ram, tej, yam, vayu, hum, akash. So that is the panchatattva kriya. And the 17th kriya is chakra kriya. We are aware of the Shat chakras and we will be more focusing on it when we come to pranayam. But now just in brief I will mention that there are Shat chakras which are psycho, neuro-mental junctions. They are nerve junctions, in the sense nadi junctions. So asanas should work on nadis, and these are all nadi junctions. There are 6 plexi. Most of you are familiar with the concept of Shat chakras, at least by names, and perhaps even there by locations. So they are Mooladhara chakra, Swadhisthana chakra, Manipuraka chakra, Anahata chakra, Vishuddhi chakra, Agnya chakra. This is in the ascending form order in the embodiment in the trunk. So Mooladhara chakra is the bottommost at the anus. Swadhisthana chakra is at genital organ region. Manipuraka chakra is in the belly. Anahata chakra is the heart chakra. It is in the heart region. Vishuddhi chakra is in the throat region, and Agnya chakra is between the brows. So those are their places. And we will be considering Shat chakras later. We had considered earlier, there was a series of sessions dedicated to Shat chakras. But we will again do afresh when we deal with pranayam. But in asana there must be Shat chakra kriya. These are our tendency bodies. Mooladhara chakra is locus for biological tendencies, which are ahara, nidra, bhaya, maithunam. So these are basic tendencies of all life forms, whether it is human or subhuman, they are there. So the Mooladhara chakra is the locus of it. They are biological tendencies. Swadhisthana chakra are Swa Adhisthana chakra. So they are tendencies which formulate our Swa, our individuality, our personality. So there are certain tendencies because of which our I-ness manifests and our individuality manifests, our identity manifests. The locus is Swadhisthana chakra. Manipuraka chakra is the chakra which is turning out tendencies by our intakes of all forms. All kinds of food, not only the food which is subject matter of dietetics, but food of senses, food of intelligence, food of emotions, food of mind, food of psyche, food of consciousness, all that comes as food. They are ahara janya tendencies, and Manipuraka chakra is the locus for it. So when we say food, don't just mistake with the food and nutrients by way of vitamins and proteins and minerals and etc. etc. But as you are aware of the concept of intellectual food, what is that food? Does it is it constituted by vitamins and proteins and minerals and salts, etc.? Not at all. Emotional food, what is it? Are there vitamins? Not at all. But they are food. So that is Vishuddhi chakra. Manipuraka chakra. That is Manipuraka chakra. The third chakra. The fourth is Anahata chakra. These are hearty tendencies. There is something that is called as hearty tendencies, which is operating our manifestation. So we have some tendencies and vasanas of the heart, and those are to be set right. Those are to be put in proper figuration, configuration, culture, status. So there are kriyas of Anahata chakra. And Vishuddhi chakra is called Saraswata Vasana. By our pursuit of studies, we generate certain tendencies. It is because of our very serious study of particular subject. We generate certain tendencies. They are called Saraswat Vasana. And those are handled by Vishuddhi Chakra Kriya. And the last one is Agnya Chakra, the sixth one, which is for Sankalpa Shakti. It is something which is quite fundamental to our very Aham, our I-ness. And we need to reform our I-ness through yoga. Without reforming I, there is no yoga. So to reform the I, one is Swadhisthana Chakra, the other one is Agnya Chakra. On the higher plane of reformation, we need to take recourse to Agnya Chakra. On fundamental plane of reforming ourselves, we have to work on all the 6 chakras. Then quite vitally on Swadhisthana Chakra, but in higher aspects of our I reformation culture, we need to work on Agnya Chakra. So those are 6 chakras. I am not going into detail of these chakras because that is reserved for pranayam, anga. That is the 17th and now 18th kriya, the final kriya, is called Upasamhara Kriya. How the asana take course after culminative phase. After its ripe and culminative phase, asana is to undergo upasamhara, conclusion. Just as we are having intent in doing an asana, we don't have intent in ending an asana, which is unfortunate. This is because of lack of education. We don't bother about, we are not meticulous about ending an asana. We are very meticulous about doing an asana. This is because of lack of education. But then when education is sufficient, Upasamhara Kriya becomes important. You cannot just switch off the asana. Like you switch off your laptop. You cannot switch off your asana. It has its own protocol. As a matter of fact, asanas have to consider upakrama, sthiti, upasamhara. It's not just doing. Asana is not just doing. It must have proper commencement, upakrama. Then it must have proper process. Then it must have proper state and sthiti. And then there must be proper upasamhara, conclusion. So, we had considered Arambhana Kriya in detail. It implies that we have to consider the final Kriya also that meticulously and with all details. So this is perhaps the other end of Arambhana Kriya. If Arambhana Kriya is the first Kriya, then Upasamhara Kriya has to be the last Kriya. And therefore, this is the 18th and final Mahakriya. So this was all just brief discussion and description of the Ashtadasha Mahakriyas. Then only it works on Chitta Samskruti, Chitta Vasana and Chitta constitution. And that is why it was so important to consider Ashtadasha Mahakriyas. So in the whole course of it, we have considered the very core aspect of asana, essential aspect of asana, particularly when we considered Yogasana Kriya, which was woven around Patanjali's 3 sutras, Sthirasukumasanam, Prayatna Shaitilya Ananta Samapatibhyam, Tato Dvandvanabhigataha. But anyway, to be concluding this asananga, we will have one more session on Yogasana, which will further decipher the asanic process based on Patanjali's Yoga Sutra and Vyasa Bhashya. So, this is the penultimate session on Yogasanas. And after the next session on Yogasanas, which is culminative, we will qualify to go for Pranayamanga. The fourth limb of Pranayam, which will need a very, very extensive foundation. With that, we end the session today. Namaskar all of you.